G'day, Daniel here from Living Entertainment. Now, I always get excited when I spot something new, or at least new to me, in the budget amplifier space. It is an incredibly competitive space, and there are a lot of really cool and interesting things happening within it. But as someone who's really focused on vinyl, that's a particular space within that budget amplifier space that I feel's kind of been ignored a little bit. So here comes Rega and their integrated amplifier, the I.O. And while Rega might be new to me personally as an amplifier company, it's not a brand I'm unfamiliar with, having grown up in a Rega turntable household. And that has me incredibly excited to see just what Rega is bringing to the budget integrated amplifier market. The first thing you're probably going to notice about the Rega I.O. is its form factor. This is not your traditional big box stereo component. And while the unit itself is roughly half the width of your average amplifier component, it's a little bit deeper. And I think based on the layouts of people's homes now and their space in their lounge rooms, that should give them more flexibility in terms of placement when it comes to looking for a home for their amplifier. The second thing you'll probably notice is just how simple the system's interface is. All you get is a power button, an input selector, headphone jack, a 3.5mm, and a volume control. That's it. Super clean and elegant. And one little piece of branding that I really like across all of their products is the fact that the power LED for the device is actually their logo. Now this results in a device that has an incredibly discrete footprint, both in terms of size and in terms of visual distractions. And it's all tied together with a very solid feeling construction. So while the device itself isn't overly heavy, it does feel quite hefty and strong in the hands. When it comes to specifications, the Rega I.O. is also no slouch. Most impressively of all is the fact that it brings over the same power amplifier stage and phono stage as what's found in its older brother, the Rega Brio. And while we're talking about the system punching above its weight, it has Alps potentiometers within the volume control, so to actually handle the device, it feels more expensive than it actually is. It's got quite nice knob feel, especially for a product within its price range. Now this is a Class AB design and it's putting about 30 watts into 8 ohms. So speaker pairing, which we will get to, is incredibly important. Now along with obviously that fantastic phono stage, you also get 2 more line level inputs. In my case, I was using one of these for a CD player. And lastly, there is the 3.5mm headphone jack on the front panel, which we previously mentioned, and that should be more than enough to drive most standard headphones. As I mentioned, Rega is a brand I am quite familiar with, but their amplifiers are something that up until now I have had zero experience with. So I had no idea really going in what types of speakers might pair well or not so well with this particular amp. And my overall experience was quite mixed. And what I found was this ended up being a fantastic exercise in system synergy. Now I tested 4 speakers, and when you get the combination right, it really does sound excellent. But the experience of getting that combination right, well, it's not quite as simple as just grabbing a speaker off the shelf and plugging it in. So unlike my previous speaker comparison videos, I'm really only going to be dwelling on one particular speaker, and that was the pairing that absolutely sold me. But I do think there are some little things of note with the other 3 speakers that are worth bringing up. The first 2 speakers I want to mention are the Wharfedale Diamond 12.0 and the Encel Gelati, as both of these speakers had very similar characteristics when paired with the Rega I.O. The treble was a little bit splashy, there wasn't a whole lot of bass, but the mid-range was excellent. It sounded very lush, it sounded very rich, and there was a lot of texture there. But it was not enough to make up for the shortcomings in either the treble or the bass. Another speaker I paired with this amplifier was the Bowers & Wilkins 707 S3, and ironically, it gave me kind of the invert experience. The treble was incredibly detailed. It wasn't necessarily bright, it was quite rolled off, but the imaging was fantastic and there was a ton of bass. But the mid-range was incredibly thin, and I don't think I've ever described a mid-range as thin before. If you can imagine vocals and guitar from your favorite track being buried by bass notes and the higher frequencies, that's kind of what this experience was like. And I don't think I've ever heard something sound like that before. So while I was impressed by the smaller details found in the higher frequencies and how far the bass extended, it was missing that clarity in the vocals and instruments like guitars that I so desperately crave. And so that trade-off again wasn't worth it. And that just leaves the last speaker I tested, the KEF Q1. The Rega I/O and the KEF Q1 sounded fantastic. It had everything I could ever want in a budget setup. The mid-range was thicker than any of the previous speaker combinations. While listening to the Beastie Boys make some noise, and it really sounded like the Beastie Boys were really popping out at the front of the sound mix, and they were really right up in your face. And I gotta say, I was genuinely surprised by the depth of the soundstage using these two components together. There was a nice bit of texture in instruments like guitars and harmonicas, and an organicness to vocals. It was just overall an incredibly smooth experience on that front. In terms of the treble, there was a lot of detail there, equally as much as the Bowers and Wilkins. When listening to Gorilla's Strange Times, there were so many little details in the sound mix that just kind of came flooding out of the speakers in a way that wasn't present on the other three pairings. It really made the music sound alive and satisfying and fun. Just overall really gave it a sense of zest and bounce that was really easy to appreciate. And if we want to talk about bass, it was impressive on that front as well. It was deep, it was bold, it extends out after the initial impact, which itself has a great deal of snap and energy. While listening to Boards of Canada's Peacock Tail, the room itself was full, but it never sounded bloated or lethargic. It just felt all-encompassing. It's an incredibly cohesive sound. Listening to Seatbelt's Spooky Dope, there's a lovely little bit of decay there on instruments like the harmonica and the slide guitar. And there's a richness to the way that it's presented in front of you in terms of soundstage width and imaging. It's just kind of the combination that had everything I could have wanted out of a speaker pairing with this amplifier. And it even opened up some little qualities that my previous pairing with the KEF Q1, which was the Rotel A8, didn't have, like that decay, which was completely absent with that particular pairing. Here, you just get that lovely little sprinkle of it through there, while retaining some of the qualities of that pairing that I also really enjoyed, such as having a little bit of soundstage height as well, which again, isn't something you normally get in budget setups. Obviously, I haven't listened to every bookshelf speaker with the Rega I/O, but based on the experience I had with this particular combination, I'm finding it pretty hard to imagine a pairing that would sound better, at least to my own personal tastes. It just had everything that I could want out of a budget combination, without any of the usual drawbacks I find working with componentry within this price range. I would absolutely recommend this amplifier with the KEF Q1. Absolutely no ifs and buts. It is a brilliant sounding system. And while I haven't listened to them personally myself, I'm sure Rega's Kite bookshelf speakers also sound quite excellent with the system, given that they were no doubt engineered and tested in tandem. But generally speaking, discoveries like this are why I love doing what I do so much. And it's such a fun part of experiencing and living hi-fi. Now, if you have any questions about the Rega I/O, the KEF Q1, or any of the other products that I spoke about today, please let us know in the comments section. You can shoot us an email, you can give us a call, details are in the description. And if you already have this particular amplifier and have it paired up with another pair of speakers, which I haven't had the chance to listen to, please let me know in the comments section below. I would absolutely love to hear about it. Thank you as always for watching, and bye for now.